We're ready to be done with this, but we're not done until the world is safe, and we're not safe as a world until the world's vaccinated.
Except the world recognizes natural immunity. We don't, because everything in this country has to go through the pharmaceutical companies. Natural immunity is the best kind of immunity. We shouldn't fire people who have natural immunity because they don't get the vaccine. We should hire them. Yes?
If someone tests as having antibodies.
Well, okay, but you know, people who've had it, I've had it.
Right.
You know, I mean, I shouldn't be tested anymore. I had the vaccine. I got
if someone's willing to be a fireman, if someone's willing to be a policeman, if someone's willing to go into a burning building and says, I'm just not that afraid of COVID and I don't want to take the vaccine, that should be enough. He shouldn't be losing his job. He shouldn't be furloughed without pay. The guy that saves lives because he doesn't want to take a vaccine. It's ridiculous.
A little messaging. I mean, I see it all the time. I saw it driving in today. People outside alone walking with a mask. It's so stupid. It's an amulet.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
A charm people wear around neck to ward away evil spirits. It means nothing. I mean, can't we get people to understand the facts more? I mean, listen to this. For unvaccinated hospitalization risk, unvaccinated, 41% of Democrats thought it was over 50%. Unvaccinated, no, I don't have that. Hospitalization rate for the vaccinated is actually 0.01%, and the rate for the unvaccinated is 0.89%. So in both cases, the correct answer is less than 1%. They thought it was over 50. How do people, especially of one party, get such a bad idea? Where did that come from?
So here's the good news. We've got safe, effective vaccines that have saved millions and millions of lives. Here's the bad news. 700,000 Americans have died. Hundreds of thousands of them needlessly.
Let me know in the comments if you guys noticed this. Every time someone gives you cold, hard facts and data on the pandemic, there's always a Democrat there to say, but what about all the deaths? What about all the needless pain and suffering? To reiterate, someone with a brain actually looks at data and tells you the facts that this pandemic is being overblown, and the Democrats try to play to your emotional side to force you to get the vaccine. So they say, hey, but what about the 700,000 people? Think of their families and their children. Think about all the pain and all the suffering. Yeah, you can do that with any crisis and any death ever. But it's not a policy change. It's not going to change everybody's everyday life. If someone dies in an accident, it's sad. It's sad for their families, but we're not going to stop driving cars for them. Sorry. Speaking of the numbers, let's provide some more context, because those 700,000 deaths were not just people that were fully healthy, getting COVID, and then dropping off like flies. No, these were people with underlying health conditions, people that were probably going to die anyways, and there were people that were already dead that they tested and saw that they had COVID in their system, so they wrote it down as a COVID death. I know some hospitals did it for money, and I know some did it because they were required to. I've seen multiple reports on this, and I even have anecdotal evidence. I know people that had relatives that passed due to other conditions. They were later tested, and there was COVID in their system, so on their death certificate, it actually said they died due to COVID, which wasn't the case. Anyways, the point I'm trying to make is not all 700,000 people died just from COVID, and some people didn't even die with anything related to COVID. So those numbers are overblown, just like the cases are overblown, because if you're asymptomatic and you don't die, you don't end up in the hospital, basically if you weren't tested and you had no idea you had it, then does it really even matter? Yes, you have antibodies, and yes, you technically had it, but why are we writing it down and using it to scare people? Yes, you had it, it sucks, another person on the list. But again, if it's not affecting anybody else, I do not understand why we're using these numbers and hanging it over people's heads and using these for actual policy matters. We're using these numbers to create policy such as vaccine mandates and lockdowns and all these other policies that don't even make sense, because at the end of the day, it's not affecting anybody. I have friends that needlessly get tested for COVID every week. By the way, they're vaccinated, but they get tested for COVID every week because they get a meal voucher. So these people are getting positive tests even though they're vaccinated and have no reason to do it other than to get food, and they're getting positive cases out of it, and they're inflating the numbers like crazy. It's just hilarious. clearly, since we're making it into sort of a game where if you get tested, you get food. If you get tested, you get rewarded. If you get vaccines, you get rewarded. All this other stuff, it's going to look worse. We're going to have worse numbers if we're incentivizing people to lie or to get tests that they don't need for a disease that they don't have. You get what I'm saying? It's the same thing with the deaths, where if we write down you have a death because you get money, because you get a reward, because you get some sort of incentive, people are going to write it down. People are going to lie. People are going to get tests they don't need. People are going to say they have it when they don't, especially when they get paid leave from work. I mean, come on, people. We're rewarding people for having a pandemic, but we want to get out of the pandemic. The media is formulating a narrative to keep you under control. I mean, it's just whatever. Leave a like if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe for more content like this. I'm done. Have a good one.